Welcome to Valente Brothers TV, once again from the beautiful Valente Brothers headquarters in North Miami Beach. Today we're going to talk about whether Jiu-Jitsu is a force of evil or a force of good. Professor Pedro Valente, please answer us that question.
I think it depends. I think that the practice of chokes and arm locks and defending against attacks does not make somebody a good person or a bad person in and of itself. If somebody says, train Jiu-Jitsu on the mat and you will automatically become a better person because of the lessons that you learn on the mat, I don't believe this is a true statement. I also don't believe that training Jiu-Jitsu makes somebody worse. And that's why I think it's so important for Jiu-Jitsu to never be separated from its philosophy. And for the atmosphere where Jiu-Jitsu is thought to be one of discipline and respect. This is not just any sport. You could argue that discipline is good in any sport for educational purposes. But in Jiu-Jitsu, it's even more important because we're teaching deadly skills, deadly techniques.
One can say that Jiu-Jitsu is the invisible weapon.
So we're giving someone a weapon. So to give somebody this weapon without teaching them a philosophy that has always been a part of Jiu-Jitsu from the days of Japan, has always been connected to Jiu-Jitsu, a philosophy of moral values, a philosophy of emotional balance. If we don't give this to students, then we are taking a bigger risk of creating a force of evil.
And throughout history, we have seen different instances where this separation happened and many problems occurred.
Correct. Both in Japan in the 19th century, where the reputation of Jiu-Jitsu was so tarnished that Jigoro Kano had to rebrand it. He tried to get it in the school system as Jiu-Jitsu. It was rejected. And then he presented it again some years later with the name Judo. Because there was a bad reputation because Jiu-Jitsu fighters were causing problems in the streets of Japan.
And the difference of Jiu-Jitsu and Judo being that instead of being the art of or the technique of yielding flexibility, when you use the word jitsu, Japanese word of jitsu,
which means art,
he changed it, or technique, he changed it to do, which is the way or the philosophy, and that's how he was able to bring it back to Japanese society and, most importantly, to the school system.
And his purpose was to highlight, not a philosophy that he invented, a philosophy that had always been a part of Jiu-Jitsu. It was important to him to highlight this philosophy. And I think that the problem usually happens when there is a glorification of the toughest person. A glorification of the tough guy with a disregard for all the other virtues, for all the other elements. Is it good to be tough? Yes. Is it good to have physical courage? Yes. Is it important to have moral courage? Arguably, even more. According to Grandmaster Helio, moral courage, the ability to resist the temptation to do bad things, was more important than physical courage. But that's debatable. But it's important to develop both. But aside from that, you have also to develop other qualities. And that's the purpose of Jiu-Jitsu, to create better individuals who can contribute something of value to society, to fellow human beings.
And in that, the importance of teacher development. Grandmaster Helio also often talked about that. He recognized that one of the main issues in Jiu-Jitsu was connected to the glorification of the champion tough guy, automatically creating teachers without going through a process. Universities, for you to become a school teacher, it's a extensive process, years and years and years. We're not saying that Jiu-Jitsu teachers have to go to the university, but there needs to be training, and the training cannot just be physical.
And you must separate things. Being a fighter is one thing, being a teacher is another. Imagine if because of the fact that I've been teaching for the last 25 years, day in and day out, from morning to evening on the mat.
Sometimes teaching 50 private lessons per week.
Imagine if because of that I say, well, I deserve a UFC belt. Give me a UFC belt. I don't deserve a UFC belt because I'm not fighting in the UFC. I'm not a fighter. I don't deserve a medal or a belt as a fighter because I'm a teacher. So sometimes fighters might erroneously expect to have a school full of students just because they were champions as fighters. They already received their reward as champions, be it money, their purse, be it the medal, be it the trophy. That's what fighters get for what they do, and the respect and the consideration of their well-deserved of their fans and of the public. Jiu-Jitsu teachers go a different route. Now, does it mean that you cannot be both?
Of course you can.
You can be both. But a teacher is a teacher, a fighter is a fighter. Look at boxing, for example. Angelo Dundee, arguably the best boxing coach ever.
Coached Muhammad Ali, coached later Sugar Ray Leonard, and so many other great fighters.
Maguila in Brazil. So a very famous coach. Now, was he a better fighter than Muhammad Ali?
Or that Mike Tyson, who was coached by initially Customado?
He wasn't. He wasn't. He wasn't a world champion. But as a coach, he was great. So if you're going to put somebody to fight in the ring, obviously you choose Mike Tyson. But if you want to choose somebody to learn boxing from, I would prefer Angelo Dundee or Emmanuel Stewart than learning from Mike Tyson, with all the respect that I have for Mike Tyson.
And boxing became a even recognized prize fighting. Jiu-Jitsu has always been connected to education. And we have to keep it that way. Again, Jiu-Jitsu, more than boxing, is the ultimate invisible weapon, hand-to-hand combat. Often, warriors, the word warriors is attributed to professional fighters, actually to athletes in general, and understandably so, because not only in sports, but in other activities, you need warrior skills many times to move forward and to achieve, yes, to be successful. But when we talk about warriors, I think of firefighters, first responders, military.
That's the ultimate demonstration of physical courage.
Military. And when it comes to Jiu-Jitsu, what is the objective? Is the objective competition? Maybe for some, maybe for many now around the world, yes. And then you might want to learn from someone that has expertise in that field. But when it comes from self-defense objectives, sometimes it is different. The qualities that you might need in sport can be completely different than the qualities you need in a self-defense situation. So even that needs to be understood and kept in its perspective accordingly. So in closing, what is the message? How can we learn to be better teachers? How can we also take advantage of all this experience, everything that we see around us, to improve?
Evolution with tradition. That's the first thing you'll find on our website, evolution with tradition. We always believe in going back to the roots. So what are the roots? If you go back and look at old newspapers when Grandmaster Carlos Gracie was interviewed, when Grandmaster Hélio Gracie was interviewed, and people asked, what's the objective of Jiu-Jitsu? What did they say? Through the techniques of Jiu-Jitsu, through the philosophy of Jiu-Jitsu, you can become a better person. So we as Jiu-Jitsu teachers have a responsibility to inspire our students to be better as human beings, to provide something of value to society, to become more benevolent, to become more respectful, to become more well-mannered, to become more polished, especially as they, as you said, they carry this invisible weapon, to develop a healthier lifestyle, healthier habits, nutrition, exercise, right, hygiene. That's why we organize a 753 code.
Which is only a tool to better explain the Jiu-Jitsu philosophy as we learn from Grandmaster Hélio, our father, and through our studies, of course.
Correct. And so I think that should be the objective, understanding that Jiu-Jitsu is not just a sport. It can be practiced as a sport, but Jiu-Jitsu's main objective is to help people be better. And we, as teachers, have a responsibility to be positive role models. And separating Jiu-Jitsu from its philosophy can lead to Jiu-Jitsu being a force of evil in society, which is very dangerous and something that we totally oppose.
So let's make sure we keep Jiu-Jitsu as a force of good. And if you have any questions, please send us, like our pages, and we hope to see you soon here in North Miami Beach one day. Thank you very much.